The lawyer's words echoed in my skull like a death sentence. Marry the guardian within 30 days, or forfeit everything. I stared at the ancient parchment on his mahogany desk, my hands trembling. The letter was written in my grandmother's spidery handwriting, a woman I'd met exactly 3 times in my 27 years. A woman who died 4 months ago and left me a castle in the Scottish Highlands that I apparently had to marry into. "This is insane," I whispered. "People don't arrange marriages anymore." Mr. Whitmore adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses. "The estate is governed by Scottish inheritance law, Miss Mackenzie. Your grandmother was quite specific in her terms. The guardian of Drummond Castle is expecting you." I thought about my studio apartment in Boston with rent 3 months overdue, my freelance design contracts drying up faster than my bank account, and the eviction notice taped to my door. A castle worth £8 million, and all I had to do was marry a stranger. 12 hours later, I stood in front of Drummond Castle and realized my grandmother had left me a beautiful nightmare. Gray stone towers clawed at the bruised purple sky while narrow windows stared down like hollow eyes. Parts of the roof had collapsed inward, and ivy strangled the eastern wall. The massive oak doors stood open, not welcoming, but waiting. "Come in, Isla Mackenzie." The voice was male, deep as the ocean, with a rolling Scottish burr that made my name sound like a secret. "I've been waiting for you." A figure materialized at the top of the grand staircase, tall and dressed entirely in black. His hair fell to his shoulders, black as midnight. Even from 30 feet away, I could see his eyes glowing amber like a wolf's. He descended with fluid grace, not quite walking, but gliding. My instincts screamed at me to run. I stepped inside instead. The doors slammed shut behind me. "Welcome to your inheritance," the man said, stopping 5 feet away. "I am Callum Drummond, guardian of this castle for the last 400 years. My mouth went dry. 400 years? His smile was slow and dangerous. When his lips parted, I saw the fangs. "Did your grandmother's letter mention that detail, lass? That the man you're meant to marry isn't quite human?" "You're a vampire," I whispered. "Aye." He stepped closer until his cold fingers caught my chin and tilted my face up to his. "And you, Isla Mackenzie, with your flame-red hair and your grandmother's stubborn mouth, you're going to be my wife." I yanked away from his grasp. "I'm not marrying anyone, and I'm definitely not marrying a vampire." "You came all this way. You walked through those doors, despite every instinct telling you to flee. That tells me you need this castle more than you fear what I am." His amber eyes tracked my movement with predator patience. "Your grandmother knew exactly what she was doing when she wrote that will." "Then explain it to me." Callum turned and walked toward the great hall, clearly expecting me to follow. "The castle is dying. Without a Mackenzie woman bonded to a Drummond guardian, everything your family built over 6 centuries turns to dust." He gestured to the shadows around us. "But it's more than that. This castle sits on a doorway, a portal that leads somewhere that should remain forever sealed. Your bloodline provides the key that keeps it closed." "What kind of doorway?" "To a place where things exist that would destroy our world if they ever crossed over." His voice held centuries of weariness. "Your family has always had a gift. Old blood with ancient magic flowing through your veins. The women of your line carry it strongest. You descend from banshees, death omens who could see between worlds. When a Mackenzie woman marries a Drummond guardian, their blood mingles in a ritual that reinforces the wards keeping the portal sealed." He led me to a portrait above the fireplace, showing a woman with flame-red hair who could have been my twin. "Your great-great-grandmother, Fiona Mackenzie. She married my brother in 1847. The marriage was arranged, just like ours. She fought it at first, just like you. But in the end, she chose to stay because she understood what was at stake." "And what happened to your brother?" He held her hand until her last breath at 73. Something painful flickered across Callum's face. "I've married 5 Mackenzie women over 400 years. Your grandmother was supposed to be the 6th, but I sent her away. I loved her enough to want her to have a real life, not this cursed existence bound to a monster in a crumbling castle." The admission caught me off guard. "You loved my grandmother?" For 50 years, I thought about her every single day. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. When she wrote to tell me she was dying, that she'd arranged for you to take her place, I was furious, but she was right. She's always been right about everything that matters. Before I could respond, a woman appeared in the shadows near the fireplace. Tall and pale with dark hair, her amber eyes marked her as another vampire. "You must be Isla," she said. "I'm Saoirse Drummond, Callum's sister." She studied me with predatory intensity. "Magnus is here, and he's asking to speak with you." Callum's entire demeanor changed, going from weary to dangerous. "Tell him she's not receiving visitors." "Who's Magnus?" I demanded. "My cousin, and the last person you should be talking to." But even as Callum spoke, a golden-haired man entered the great hall with a smile that revealed perfect fangs. "Ah, there she is," Magnus said, his voice smooth as silk. "The famous Isla Mackenzie, come to save us all from certain doom. Has my cousin mentioned that you could marry me instead? That any Drummond guardian would do for the ritual, not just him?" Callum moved between us. "Magnus has no interest in playing the noble guardian. He wants the portal open because he thinks he can control what comes through and use its power for himself." "There's power down there, Isla," Magnus said, looking past Callum to meet my eyes. "Ancient, intoxicating power that could change everything. You could marry me, fulfill the letter of the ritual, and when the wards fail because I have no intention of maintaining them properly, you'll be free to leave with a castle and a fortune. Or you can bind yourself to my cousin and spend the rest of your mortal life trapped in this tomb." "Get out," I said, surprised at the steadiness in my voice. "I'm not interested in being a pawn in your family drama." Magnus bowed with mocking formality. "The portal opens at midnight on the blood moon, Lady Mackenzie. Make sure you're certain which side of it you want to be on." He strode toward the entrance, and the great doors swung open before him. When he was gone, I turned to Callum. "Were you going to tell me that any Drummond could fulfill the ritual?" "Yes, technically any Drummond with the Guardian's blood could perform it. But if you marry Magnus, thousands will die when he opens that portal." Callum ran a hand through his hair. "I need you to understand that." Over the next 3 weeks, I discovered my grandmother's journals, hidden in the tower room where I slept. She documented everything, including detailed descriptions of seeing through the castle walls to the chambers beneath where the portal waited. Her final entries grew increasingly worried about cracks spreading across the door that held back the darkness. One night, I woke to find the mirror in my room glowing with greenish light. Against every instinct, I approached and looked into the glass. My reflection changed, and suddenly I was seeing through layers of castle and earth to the chambers my grandmother had described. The descent was nauseating, pulling me down through stone and root systems until I saw it. The door, 20 feet tall, its surface writhing with barely contained pressure from the other side. Massive cracks glowed with sickly light, and dark substance seeped through like infected blood. Chains that looked more like ancient roots bound the door, but many had withered and broken. "Let us out, daughter of the old blood." The voices spoke directly into my mind, promising power and knowledge and freedom from mortality. "Open the door. We'll make you immortal, powerful beyond imagining." My hand lifted toward the mirror without my permission, drawn by promises that resonated with every desperate part of myself. Then someone was shaking me, pulling me back from the vision. "Don't look into the deep places," Callum said urgently, his hands ice cold against my overheated skin. "Your grandmother's gift is stronger in you than it was in her. The portal creatures can sense that." "I saw it," I gasped. "The door's breaking. Something's coming through." "I know. We have less time than I thought." He helped me stand. "If we don't perform the ritual by the blood moon, the door will open whether Magnus interferes or not." "Show me," I said. "I need to see it with my own eyes, not through visions." Despite his protests, Callum led me down through hidden passages to the deep chambers beneath the castle. We descended spiral stairs that seemed to go on forever, past corridors carved from living rock covered in protective symbols. The air grew colder with each step, carrying scents that made my hindbrain scream warnings. Finally, we entered a vast circular chamber where the door from my vision stood in terrible reality. Seeing it with physical eyes was worse than any nightmare. The door towered above us, writhing and pulsing with malevolent hunger. Through the cracks, something pale and wrong pressed against the barrier, trying to force its way into our world. I stepped closer, drawn by compulsion I couldn't resist. The voices returned, stronger now, more seductive. My hand reached for the door without my conscious permission, and I felt something trying to use my proximity and my blood as an anchor point to break through. Callum's arms wrapped around me from behind, pulling me back with vampire strength. The connection snapped, and I gasped as control of my body returned. "I'm sorry," I managed. "I couldn't stop." "It's not your fault. The portal recognizes Banshee blood." He supported my weight as my legs gave out. "We need to leave. Now." As we climbed back to the castle proper, I understood exactly what my grandmother had protected against for 50 years. This wasn't some abstract threat. This was real and present and desperately hungry to break free. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation and growing dread. I read every journal, learned every detail of the ritual, and tried to ignore the way my heart raced whenever Callum was near. He was patient and careful, never pushing, always giving me space to make my choice. Then Magnus returned with an army of rogue vampires, attacking 3 days before the blood moon. They flooded the castle, overwhelming Callum and Sorsha with sheer numbers. Magnus cornered me in the tower, his beautiful face twisted with malicious hunger. "Your blood is the key," he said, dragging me toward the hidden passages. "Just a few drops on the portal door and everything changes. The old powers will reward those who free them." He forced me down the spiral stairs while fighting erupted above. In the chamber with the door, he cut my palm with a knife, holding my bleeding hand over the writhing surface. "Open," he commanded. "Break the seal." The portal surged, responding to my Banshee blood. The cracks widened, and things pressed harder against the barrier from the other side. I could feel their hunger, their desperate need to break free and consume everything in their path. Then Callum was there, crashing into Magnus with enough force to shatter stone. They fought with inhuman speed and strength while I clutched my bleeding hand, trying to stop the blood from dripping onto the door. But it was too late. The seal was breaking, fractures spreading like spiderwebs across the surface. "Isla!" Callum shouted, pinning Magnus against the wall. "The ritual! We need to perform it now, or the door opens completely." "But we're not married," I called back. "The blood moon isn't for 3 more days." "The marriage is just a formality," he twisted, avoiding Magnus's claws. "The blood exchange is what matters. If you choose me, if you choose to bind your blood to mine willingly, we can seal it now." I looked at the door with its spreading cracks, at the pale things pressing through from the other side. I thought about my grandmother loving this man for 50 years, about 400 years of lonely duty, about thousands of innocent people who would die if I failed. And I thought about the page I'd found in my grandmother's journal, the secret 4th option, the temporary marriage of 7 years that would let me keep my humanity while reinforcing the wards. "I choose you," I said, loud enough that the words echoed off stone walls. "Not forever, not yet. But for 7 years, I bind my blood to yours willingly." Callum's eyes widened in understanding. He knew about the ancient ritual, the one his own ancestors had used centuries ago. "Are you certain?" "I'm certain that I won't let those things through. I'm certain that you've earned 7 years of hope, that maybe I'll choose to stay longer." I moved toward him, away from the door. "And I'm certain that my grandmother believed in both of us enough to give us this chance." Magnus lunged, trying to stop us, but Sorsha appeared and tackled him. "Do it!" she shouted. "Before it's too late!" Callum caught my bleeding hand and bit his own wrist, pressing the wounds together. His blood mixed with mine, ice cold and burning simultaneously. 7 years, he said, his amber eyes locked on mine. "By the old laws and the ancient powers, I accept your terms, Isla Mackenzie. Be my wife in word and deed, bound by blood and choice for 7 turns of the seasons." Power exploded through me, rushing from our joined hands through my entire body. I could feel the castle responding, feel the wards strengthening, feel the magic in my Banshee blood awakening fully for the first time in my life. The sensation was overwhelming, intimate in ways that had nothing to do with physical touch. Behind us, the portal door groaned. The cracks stopped spreading, the dark substance seeping through dried and flaked away. The pale things pressing from the other side retreated with screams that existed only in my mind. The ancient roots binding the door glowed with renewed strength, weaving tighter and holding firm. The seal held. Magnus howled with rage, but Sorsha dragged him away, up the stairs and out of the castle. "You'll regret this," he shouted as they disappeared. 7 years isn't forever. I'll be waiting when your time runs out." But I barely heard him. I was too focused on the connection forming between Callum and me, the bond that would let me feel when he was in danger or pain, that would let him know when I was frightened or hurt. It was invasive and comforting simultaneously, knowing that for the next 7 years, we would never truly be alone. "How do you feel?" Callum asked softly, still holding my hand. "Different. Alive in ways I've never felt before. I could sense the castle around us, feel its ancient consciousness, recognizing me as Lady Drummond. And terrified that I just made the biggest decision of my life on 3 weeks' acquaintance." "You made the right choice, not the easy one, but the right one." He released my hand carefully, and I felt the ghost of his presence in my mind even after we were no longer touching. 7 years to decide if you want forever. That's more than I ever dared hope for. We stood in the chamber with the sealed portal between us, both of us aware that this was just the beginning. In 7 years, I would have to choose again, become fully immortal as his vampire bride, or return to my humanity and let the next Mackenzie woman take my place. But that was a problem for another day. For now, I had a castle to restore, a husband to get to know, and 7 years to figure out if the connection I felt growing between us was real, or just the result of blood magic and desperate circumstances. As we climbed back toward the great hall where dawn light was beginning to stream through the windows, I thought about my grandmother's words. "You're stronger than you know, child." Maybe she'd been right after all. 6 months later, I stood at the window of my tower room watching the sun set over the Highland Mountains and painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The castle had been restored, its walls solid and whole once more. Tourists came during the day to admire the architecture and hear carefully edited versions of its history. At night, the castle belonged to us. Callum appeared behind me, his presence in my mind arriving seconds before his physical form. The bond had grown stronger over the months, and I'd stopped finding it invasive. Now it was almost comforting, knowing that I was never truly alone. "Regretting your choice yet?" he asked with a hint of humor that I'd learned meant he was genuinely worried about my answer. "Ask me again in 6.5 years. I turned to face him, this beautiful, ancient creature who'd somehow become the most important person in my world. But no, not today. He smiled, and for the first time since I'd met him, the expression reached his eyes. "Good, because I've grown rather fond of having you here, Lady Drummond." We had 6.5 years to figure out what came next, 6.5 years to turn a marriage of necessity into something real. And somewhere beneath our feet, the portal remained sealed, held in place by blood and choice, and the fragile hope that love might grow where duty had planted its seeds. My grandmother had given me a castle, a purpose, and a chance at something extraordinary. Whether I was brave enough to seize it completely remained to be seen. But I had time, 7 years of it to be precise, and for now that was enough.